HR is a funny old thing, isn't it? But so is managing people and making sure we do things the right way. This webinar today is about exactly that. It's about making sure that we're doing the right things. Firstly, to make sure that we are legal and making sure that we provide everything we should be providing, but also making sure that we get the best out of the people. And if we treat people right and with respect, they're going to do their best for us. A successful business is only as good as the people in it. So if you employ great people and look after them, your business will go far. So this today is with Emma Wynne from Gateway HR. This is about UK based HR, although some of the things we talk about are completely transferable. But obviously, if there are laws that we're talking about, please refer to your own country's legislation. Please don't take the UK one if you're outside the UK. But it is a fact-filled session. And if you've got any questions afterwards, please let us know. Enjoy. Okay, good morning and welcome to the Believe and Achieve online session this morning. I am very happy to have Emma Wynne from Gateway HR with us this morning to talk to us all about the secrets to being a great employer. And I know this is kind of looking at things from the start. I don't know what anything's going to be said, and I'm so excited about this. So, Emma, I am going to pass over to you now, and I'm going to mute myself and turn my video off.
Okay.
She says, right.
Fab. Okay, great. Well, no, thank you firstly for inviting me to come along today. I've worked in HR for 20 something years, quite a lot of years. So I like to think that there's probably not many things that I haven't seen. So feel free to ask questions at any point. And the classic, if I don't know, I will know how to find the answer for you. So I started Gateway HR nearly 18 years ago on the basis of wanting to provide great HR regardless what size the business is. Because as we all know, if either as a team member or as a manager, if you enjoy where you work, you like the people you work with, you get a better experience. And then, of course, the organization gets the best from you, as opposed to the opposite when people are not happy. And that's when you get the issues that normally a lot of people think of HR as just I mean, HR get called all sorts of things, but the police of the organization. HR solve things when things go wrong, which we do. But my real interest in HR is genuinely around the people. So how do we create a workplace where people like to be at work? They want to do their best for themselves and for the organization, and then you get a lot less problems. So that's my real passion. In a moment of madness, that's what I did my master's on, which was over 10 years ago now, I think it was. Working with, so anyone who's local to Northamptonshire, I know we'll have people all over the UK. I worked with a family business called West Lodge Farm Park, who I absolutely love, and looked at as a small business, what do they do that makes it a great place to work? And then just wrote 20,000 words about it, as you do as a master's. So yeah, so that's my background. So I just get my slides to move. So this is us. This is our most recent photo. So actually, we've had some new starters and some leavers in between, because that always happens when you pay for a photographer to come out. But at the front there, we have our office dog, Daisy, who doesn't know a lot about HR, but is great for cuddles, therapy, and general amusement within the office. And she's actually sat next to me now, but at the moment she's asleep. So hopefully that will be okay. The other picture is an image that is painted on our wall in the office, and that is my thought. When you manage and develop people, it's the best thing that can happen for individuals and the organisations that they work in. So today we're going to be looking at particularly focused around small or new employers. So when do you need to add to your team? Whether that's for the very first time or you already have a team, but how do you know when you need to grow that team? We are going to cover what your obligations are because there are a lot of them, mostly for good reason, but we won't comment on that within this session. But basically, the law is the law, so it's really important to know what it is that you have to do and what your options are. But then, like I said, move to what I think is the most important aspect of managing people is to really understand, what do people want from work? Because if it's an employer, you can meet those needs. then, and there's huge amounts of research around this, that if people enjoy what they do their best for the organization. So there's a much better chance of your organization achieving its goals, whether that's around commercials and finance and profit and bottom line. If you're a business, if you're a charity, that you meet your charitable aims. If you're part of the public sector, that you provide a great service to the people that you serve. So it works across every type of organization. And again, how do you ensure that your team, love working for you, for your business? And the good news is, a lot of it does not have to cost a lot of money. We work mainly with small businesses. So if we suggested to them that they were a market leader in terms of salaries, had really expensive benefits, they'd say, well, that sounds great, Emma, but we can't afford any of that. So realistic in terms of what to do. So in terms of knowing when to employ, so I'm no different. Kind of now, 16 years ago, I employed my first team member. And a lot of that was around realizing that actually, regardless of what sales and marketing I was doing, I couldn't do any more work if I didn't add to my team. My first role, which is similar in a lot of businesses, was an admin support role. She does a lot more than that, but basically doing all the things that, as a business owner, either I never got round to doing or it wasn't the best use of my time. So we did calculate within 2 months that she had paid her own salary, in terms of, sending out invoices that I'd never got round to sending out, or chasing people who hadn't paid. The kind of things that, if you're busy trying to look after your clients, they fall to the side. And it's certainly not my skill set, or something that I enjoy doing. But it might be. And then my second role after that, which was probably about 6 months later, was the second HR consultant. Because again, didn't matter, you could have loads of work coming in, but if you can't do it, you can't grow your business. Like I said, key admin tasks are falling behind. So it's the classic that you take on more work than you can actually do. So actually, the standards that you had at the beginning start to fall, because there's only so many hours in the day and the week. If you're the business owner, no time to work on your business. So actually, you're not doing any sales and marketing, any social media, because you don't have time. So potentially the work will eventually dry up because nobody is aware that you're there. Like I said, potentially maybe mistakes, complaints, because again, if at this point it's just you, or even if you have a team, but everybody is stretched, then that's when mistakes start to happen, because people are not concentrating on what they're doing, and perhaps some complaints will start coming in. Really importantly, as a business owner or a manager, the impact that it's having on your mental health. So are you working, ridiculous hours? Are you not having any time off at the weekends? Have you not had a holiday for years, which I hear a lot from business owners? And again, that will have an impact on your mental health. So you may not be aware to start with, but then things will start to change, and it's thinking, right, what can I do? Because that's not sustainable in the long term. So lots of reasons to know. How we work particularly within the HR team, one of our KPIs is the amount of time that our HR team their work is invoiceable, and we have a certain percentage that, if it's below that, then obviously we know we need to do more sales and marketing because there's not enough work. But just as importantly, if it goes above that, that's when we think, right, do we need to recruit? So we're not putting that pressure on our team. So if it's above a certain level, consistently over only a matter of weeks, we'll then start to look at, do we need to add to the team, either an employed member of the team, or perhaps get some extra help in terms of freelance, if that would work. So lots of things to think through. So, like I said, this is as I always say to people, they're not particularly exciting, but incredibly important when it comes to either employing for the first time, or we work with a lot of clients that maybe have employed people for quite a long time, but don't have the right things in place. So, in true HR style, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the most important and the ones that will potentially get you into the most trouble if you don't have them. So everybody has a legal right to a contract of employment. For many years, it was that people had to have it within the first 8 weeks. Why anybody would start a job not knowing what their contract is, I don't know, but that was the law. But that changed. Few years ago now, and they have to have it by the day they start. But of course, it makes sense to have the contract out before that, so the person can review it and check that they're happy with the contents of that contract. So do that properly. You would expect me to say this, but please don't Google it or chat GPT. Do find something that fits for the role and fits for your organization. We've seen some very interesting contracts over the years where people have clearly got them from somewhere else. And there are things within that tie the employer to things that they have no idea that they've committed to. Examples being really long notice periods, which is a bigger impact on the employer than the employee. Things like company sick pay, which again, as a small employer, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to afford that, or you certainly probably wouldn't want it in the contract because you can change it if you need to. So, yeah, don't just borrow one from somewhere else if you don't know what you're reading. Key policies, so things like disciplinary, as I always say, the dark side of HR, so disciplinary grievance, but also, the things that people need to know. So things like family related policies, so maternity, paternity, shared parental leave, adoption leave, surrogacy, there is a huge amount out there. So again, make sure that your policies fit your business. Think about what you need. Things like social media policies. Don't write one when something has gone wrong. Make sure you have that from the beginning. So what can people post on social media? And things like that. So there are many policies that to have in place. The third one, hopefully, is obvious. People won't stay if you don't pay them unless they're volunteers. So making sure that you've got that pay correct. So obviously there's national minimum wage. Make sure you keep on top of that in terms of it going up. But also think about what is competitive, what is needed to attract the best people. Make sure we don't do payroll at all. So make sure a lot of accountants will do payroll, bookkeepers. Again, making sure that it's done properly, so you're not in trouble for not paying the right amount of money. Health and safety, again, this is not something we do a lot of work on the health side, around things like mental health and stress. But depending on what your organization does, do check what you need to have in place for what I always call traditional health and safety. So basically making sure that people are safe and don't get injured at work. And that will vary depending on what you do. Right to work checks, you should check that everybody who works for you has the right to work in the UK. That should be done. If you don't do it before they start, that should be the first thing you do on day one. Again, we usually advise people to do that sooner because you don't want to find that out on the day that you think you've got a new starter and they don't have the right to work in the UK. So there's lots of guidance online as to how to do that, but it's really important that you do it for everybody. Working hours and leave. There's a big piece of law called the Working Time Regulations that looks at how many hours people can work, what holiday they're entitled to, breaks, and if anybody employs younger people, it's different for younger people in terms of how many hours they can work, breaks between shifts, and how late they can work. To be fair, there are certainly lots of organisations out there that don't follow that, but again, to be aware of that. in terms of working hours and leave. With all this legislation, it's about what you have to do as a minimum. So for annual leave, it's 5.6 weeks per year, which can include bank holidays as long as people understand that. But you can do more. Um, and one of the things that people want most from work is some kind of work-life balance. So do consider, can we give more annual leave than we have to legally? It doesn't cost you anything as such, depending if you need to cover people when they're off, but it is something that's incredibly valued by people. So we offer more annual leave than we when we need to legally, because we know that's a big draw for people. And finally, on this section, making sure that you keep good records. So people need to sign their employment contract, have a copy of that signed, usually electronically. Pretty much the days of paper records are pretty much gone. We recommend having a HR system so you can have everything stored online. And that also means, the really practical stuff, but the stuff that takes up a lot of time, like annual leave, can all be done via the system. Most of them have an app. So if somebody suddenly decides on a Saturday that they fancy a week off in a few weeks' time, they can put that in. The manager will receive that, hopefully, not at the weekend, and can say yes or no. So no spreadsheets, no pieces of paper, just really practical getting things done. So that's like I said, there are other things, but they are the most important. And every single one of those is covered by law. So if it's not done properly, you could find yourself in a little bit of trouble or a lot of trouble, depending what's happened. So on to what I think is the most important thing. Once you've got all your legal stuff covered, then it's really thinking what do team members want? This is useful before you employ people, so you can get your recruitment right, because recruitment is basically sales and marketing. It's getting people to think, I would really like to work for that company. When they're advertising, I'm going to apply for that role. So it's thinking, what do people want? And therefore, what can we put in? Have we do it, put it in our adverts, have it on our website, have it on our careers page so that we get known as a good employer, and therefore we attract the best people when we're looking to recruit. So all of these, excuse me, are based on huge amounts of research, not by myself, but big research organizations, people like Gallup, the Institute of Employment Studies, CIPD, and these are the most common themes. And as you'll see, which may be good news, nowhere in there does it say pay. There's always well, it's been debated for decades whether pay motivates, but really what people need, or what you need as an employer to be a great employer, is that people want to feel valued and involved at work. So feel that they're part of something that's important. They have an impact within that. There's some very interesting research coming out now around like the generations coming in to the workplace now, and a lot of that is around that they want to feel part of something. They want to feel important. They want to know that they make a difference, and that values are really important. So organisations that don't have values, or worse than that, say they have values, but that's not how they behave, is a huge turn off. To be fair, that would be a huge turn off for me as well, but the research around people coming into the workforce. So feeling valued, I always use the example of perhaps somebody comes back after being off sick, or just back from annual leave. How many people take the time, particularly their line manager, say it's great, it's great to see you back. How was your holiday, or how are you feeling? I mean, hopefully there'll be processes around absence, but that people feel that somebody missed them while they were away. Do people feel valued for what they do? So when was the last time as a manager that you took the time to say thank you to somebody, or that what you've just done, that piece of work was brilliant? And most importantly, why was it brilliant? What was it about it? How has that helped the team and the organisation? And being involved is having a say. So, being able to, make suggestions, different ways of working, whatever that might be. Two-way communication, so it's not all top down that managers say this and everybody just goes along with that. Actually, communication that goes both ways, um, in all across the organization. The thing that is consistent, across all studies, is that it's line managers that make the difference. There's a phrase which you've probably all heard: people don't leave organizations, they leave managers. And most of the time that is the case, because that's the person who's going to have the most impact on whether you enjoy your role, whether you feel that you're being developed and treated fairly. But to be fair to a lot of managers out there, which I, like I said, it's half of our business, is they never receive any training. The classic, somebody's really good at their job. I used to work before Gateway within mental health, and I would see it quite often. So somebody that's, let's say, a nurse, because they're the biggest staffing group, a brilliant nurse clinically, gets promoted to a ward manager, or a shift manager, and then things start to go wrong. And it's like, well, just because they're a great nurse does not mean they'll be a great manager unless they're given the right support and training. So, training to how do you motivate people at work? How do you deal with tricky situations? How do you manage when somebody's performance is not as it should be? And so many managers, sorry, excuse me, don't get that training, which is very, in my opinion, very unfair on the managers to put somebody under that amount of stress. A commitment to well-being. So again, this is not about having, a huge budget, but do you feel that the organization cares about your well-being? If you were not yourself, and that was obvious, does anybody ask you, is as simple as, does anybody ask you if you're okay? Do you know who you could talk to, if you were struggling at work? Does the organization keep an eye on working hours, or do they just let people work, ridiculously long hours and never say, you know, what's going on? Why were you working? Why were you working in the evening? I saw that you were working at the weekend. Can we talk about workload? So lots of things fit under there. Inclusion, another one of my favorite topics. So does everybody feel included at work? So under inclusion obviously would fit everything we know around equal opportunities and diversity, but inclusion is much bigger. It's like, do people, genuinely feel, similar to the top one, that I belong here? I'm welcome in this organization. I can be my true self at work. I don't have to. There's a lot of research around what's called masking, where people feel that they have to behave differently at work, maybe dress differently, things like that, because for whatever reason, they don't feel that they can be themselves. So what we need is organizations where everybody can come to work as themselves, bring their best version, and not be worried about not being included, or perhaps worse than that, being discriminated against for some reason. And finally, I mentioned this one already, but integrity and values. So an organization that people believe in, they know that the organization acts, fairly, legally, and has strong values in place that they actually live by. So a short list, but a really powerful list. So we always, when I'm talking to people, I say let's go through these, and be really honest in terms of where do we sit. So perhaps as a management team, be really honest. Do we have those things within our organisation? And of course, what you can also do is go out to your team and ask them as well. See if there's a difference between what the management team think, and what team members think. And again, what can we do about that? Okay. So, like I said, the majority of our clients are smaller businesses, so we don't suggest things that cost huge amounts of money, because that It's not possible. But what can we offer on a budget to be a great employer? So the picture, well, on the right as I look at it, is just snipped from our website. So yeah, that's Daisy the dog again. So we actually split ours into, what makes it a great place to work. So values driven, and anybody who knows us knows that's true, what the values are. We have a very inclusive, fun culture. Sometimes HR can be a little bit heavy, so we're always making sure that there is some fun at work within that. Good leadership, a learning organisation. So that basically means that we prioritise development for every role within the business. So everybody has a development plan. And looking at, how do people, if people want to progress within their career, what how can we help them to do that? But even when that's not the case, because again, as a small business, there are not many layers and not many roles, but actually still learning to be the absolute best that you can be in the role that you do. We do a lot of work with charities in the local community, which appeals to a lot of people. Doesn't appeal to everybody, but it's something that's important to us. And the next one's just an amusing one: unlimited caffeine, social activities and events, and a real importance placed on work-life balance. My team know that if I get an email from them in the evening or at the weekend, the first question next time I see them will be, "Why did you need to do that?" Checking again around workload, work-life balance, because time with whoever you're spend time with outside of work is really important. Benefits and perks, again, you'll see that none of those necessarily cost a lot of money. Probably the one that appeals the most is the 4-day working week. So all our team get paid for 5 days, but only work 4. And a lot of people enjoy that. So, and again, it's just about being organised around that. Pension, which wasn't on the list, but you do have to enrol people into a pension. So do speak to your payroll provider if you don't do that. Private healthcare sounds a lot more expensive than it is. There are some really great schemes out there which can really make a difference to the individual, but also, of course, to the business, because if people can get help sooner, they're going to be better and back at work. Yeah, gym membership. Yes, and again, cuddles with the dog when needed. Don't know why that's gone across that. Apologies. So ongoing development. So like I said, career paths, coaching, professional qualifications, which is obviously mainly for the HR team, but it doesn't mean that other people couldn't, if that was relevant. Everybody has a one-to-one every month, and in team days. So lots of different things. So like I said, recruitment is kind of a sales and marketing. So somebody looked at that and they thought, oh, that sounds like the type of organization I would like to work for. Then they would apply. Equally, they might look at that and think, no, that's not for me. And then you're not wasting anybody's time. But other things that you can do, flexible working. Again, there is legislation around that, but it's thinking through how, does that appeal? So do you have people who have caring commitments outside of work? How can you facilitate flexible working to help them balance that? Sometimes it's just the really practical things, somebody's waiting for delivery. Can I work from home today? Yes, that's absolutely fine. So, helping people to balance work and home. I mentioned already giving more annual leave than you have to. Career development. I mentioned most of these, haven't I? Healthcare or cash plans. And actually, one thing we haven't got on there, so we need to update it, is like a perks platform. So we use an organisation called Reward Gateway. It doesn't cost us very much at all, but it means that our team get lots of different kind of discounts and benefits with different retailers. So a lot of it again comes back to how well do you know your team and what would be of interest to them. So for us working in professional services, career development is really important to most people who work with us. So making sure that we provide that so that we're attractive as an employer. Again, flexible working, annual leave is important to most people. But again, if you look at maybe the demographics of your team, are they more likely to be attracted to that because they're more likely to have commitments outside of work? I just put this, there's so many quotes like this. I really like this. This was Graham Henry was the All Blacks coach, which if you're not familiar, you don't have to enjoy rugby to understand that the All Blacks are an incredible team. And his quote is that look after your people, and the school will take care of itself, which is pretty much what the message is today. There's a similar one from Richard Branson where he says customers don't come first, employees do, because if you look after the employees, they will look after the customers. And in my very simple brain, that makes perfect sense. You know, if you look after the people that are delivering your product or service, then ultimately your customers and your clients are going to be happy because they're receiving that from people who are happy. They know what they're doing, they have the right resources, you know, and they want to do a good job. Sorry. Okay, so finally, the QR code, which I'm sure Yvette will send the link round as well. We do a lot of free events. So probably our most popular is our HR clinic. Which runs every month, either run by myself or one of the HR team. And people literally just come along and ask questions. So sometimes they're people who are in HR roles, but perhaps the only person in HR. So they need somebody to bounce ideas off, or business owners, or people who are responsible for HR, but it's not all of their job, if that makes sense. So people come along maybe with some challenges they're facing. They're not quite sure what to do in a situation, but we also share ideas. So people launching new benefits, new things at work, and sharing it with that group because it's worked really well. So, for example, in this month's clinic, we started talking about Christmas parties, and how do you strike the balance between finding something that you're never going to please everybody, but how do we, when we've got lots of different people, different cultures, some people celebrate, some people don't, some people like, some people don't, what are the different options? That was a really good discussion within the HR clinic. And we also do a lot of webinars and lunch and learn, so do scan that or click the link when Yvette sends it through, and it would be great to see some of you on there. So that's it from me, other than just, I think now we're going to stop the recording so people can ask questions and not worry that if they're confidential HR questions that they're being put in a webinar. So yeah, but it's been great to be with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma. I really appreciate your time today. It's been so valuable. Looking forward to the questions. And yeah, I will make sure that this goes out on the replay. And anytime I post it, I'll make sure your details are on there, Emma. So if anyone wants to contact you directly or look at your website and the QR codes, it'll all be there. But thank you so much. I'm going to switch the recording off now. Thank you so much. Here we
Thank
go.
you.